And we should be live. Is everyone okay? Tell me how the sound is, if it's working, if my mic is picking it up. Um, I am going to be doing something a little different today. There was a thread that was going around yesterday, and I realized that I couldn't access it this morning because the user had blocked me, as she's blocked quite a few people in our circle. So I've had to open a fresh browser where she is, you know, she's, I'm not logged in so that I could view the thread so that I could properly comment on it. Um, and that's what I'm going to be doing today. It's in the title, so Nour Goda. Apparently, she describes herself as a, let me see, she describes herself as an ex-atheist, which I find hysterical. Um, and she's considers herself an activist of some sort. So her Twitter description reads, Muslim, mother, wife, sister, striving to improve each day, retweets and likes, not endorsements, no DMs from brothers, please, hashtag ex-atheist, hashtag women's rights without feminism, which I feel like is a good segue into what we're going to be talking about. So the thread in question is this one. I will post it in the chat. And if you can't view it immediately, try signing out and viewing it, because she has blocked quite a few people within the ex-Muslim circle. She blocked me soon after I commented on it. All questions, like, leave your questions in the chat. I will deal with them at the end of the discussion. But she went ahead and she blocked me after I had quote tweeted her and said something really petty like, do you want to lose some brain cells? And then it was just her thread underneath. But she posted a thread about why she's hard on feminism. The first reason she says is that it contradicts Islam. I'm just going to read the thread first of all, and then we'll comment on it bit by bit. She goes, it contradicts Islam. It leads to the desolation of family. It leads to imbalance in society in terms of gender roles and responsibilities, thereby leading to more injustice for all parties. It is laden with contradictions from one movement to another. If feminists can't agree on basics among themselves, how can critics? It relies on identity politics and victimhood, thereby never truly aiming for a resolution. In practice, it actually strips women of their God-given rights, thereby leading to injustice against women. It renders all men inherently evil and forces them into silence by any grievance they may have. And then she also added, and I feel like she added this because this wasn't a very popular opinion. She goes, not why I'm hard on feminism, to gain male approval, the above blanket ad hominem statement of many feminists when they can't discuss reasonably. To gain male approval, okay, where is your proof? And to again, she stated to gain male approval, still waiting for proof. She wrote to gain male approval 3 times, and I'm not entirely sure what that's about. But we're gonna comment on the points that she actually made. So the first reason is the only thing that I'm actually agreeing with in terms of why she disagrees, or is, I don't know why she mentioned it like this. She said why I'm hard on feminism, or why she disagrees with feminism. And the first reason is the only one that I can see logically follows, is that it contradicts Islam. Now, I've heard many times, and I have to give credit to Nour, I've heard many times people claiming that Islam is a feminist religion when it isn't. I don't think that there is a religion that is a feminist religion. And just to preface this, I don't particularly identify myself as a feminist. I do agree with equal rights, but I don't necessarily agree with the current wave of feminism. So I don't typically, like, it's not in my bio or anything. It's not the first thing you'd know about me. But I do think that women and men should have equal rights. I think that we should be held to the same standards. We should have equal opportunity. But the first thing she says is that feminism contradicts Islam, and that's true. There's not much to say about that. Islam is inherently misogynistic. It holds women and men to completely different standards, and the rules just aren't the same. Then she says after that that feminism leads to the desolation of family. Now, I'm not entirely sure what she means by that, because in if she's talking about the whole angel of the hearth kind of old-timey understanding of what family is, whereas the man is the breadwinner and the woman is the bread maker, like all of that stuff. Yes, in that sense, feminism does deconstruct that idea of family, but that idea of family is very much a social construct. So I'm not entirely sure, because different families are held to different standards, and different families are governed in different ways. You get matriarchal families, you get patriarchal families, you get families that are single parent, families that are, now we have same-sex couple families, we have foster families, we have, in my case, I don't have a structured family because I've been disowned. So my idea of family is completely different to the traditional sense of family. And to be honest, I'm not one for traditional standards. I think that sticking to traditions, while they can be easy to follow, I don't think that having a blind, look on tradition and just saying that tradition is the best thing ever is the best way to govern living. So it's silly, in my opinion. It's silly for that to be a reason why you disagree with feminism, because your family structure is desolated. I think in Nour's world, she just sees this patriarchal structure where the woman obeys the husband and the children are led through fear and obedience and all of that stuff, and love doesn't really hold a place in the family and things like that. Very old-timey, very, pre modernist interpretations of family. Like, that's what I see from this comment. I mean, I don't know her. This is the first time I've come upon her glorious content. So that's all that I can gather. But I don't think that holding to this is a very, healthy way of looking at family. But moving on, the third point she makes is that feminism leads to imbalance in society in terms of gender roles and responsibility, thereby leading to more injustice for all parties. Now, it's Twitter, so she didn't elaborate, and even if it wasn't Twitter, I don't know if she would, because again, this is my first exposure to her content. And she seems to think that feminism leads to imbalance in society in terms of gender roles and responsibilities. Gender roles throughout history and throughout different communities, throughout different societies, have always changed. Gender roles are inherently societal things. They are social constructs, and they are built over the need of the time. So, I mean, I may be talking out my ass, I don't know. But I imagine during the caveman times, hunter-gatherer eras, men would go out hunting and women would look after the children, maybe gather some berries, do some cooking, whatever. And, maybe that was the need for the time. During the Victorian era, women would still be working. It's not like they wouldn't be working, especially if they were among the working class, but they would be milkmaids, or they'd be working on farms, usually alongside their families. They wouldn't be working in the mines because the mines were considered to be a man thing, and to be honest, I don't really see women working in mines. I've had this discussion with a few people where one of my friends had said, well, the majority of bricklayers are still men, there's no equality in bricklaying, and I simply said that nobody actually wants to be a bricklayer, so it's not really, it's not about equalizing the playing field that every single job role should be 50-50, 50% women, 50% men. It should simply be a case of there being an equal opportunity for gaining that role if you want it. And the fact of the matter is that nobody wants to be a bricklayer. It's just a job that needs doing. But in the case of like high power roles, high paid roles, everybody wants those roles. It's not just men, it's not just women. And both should be given the opportunity to achieve that. Now, she says that it creates an imbalance in societies in terms of gender roles and responsibilities. Now, again, in terms of Islam, the gender roles would be very much, the man is the head of the house, he makes all the money, and the woman's priority, I'm not saying she can't work, because I've heard this argument way too many times, but the woman's priority is to be a wife and to be, look after the children, and she has to obey the husband. Like, that's the dynamic very briefly put in terms of what a woman's role in society is. And I'm sure there's like many other things that I could say to fluff that up and make it sound wonderful, but that's not what we're doing here. We've never done that here, and we're not going to start. So first of all, loads of different societies have run in loads of different ways. If we look at Spartan society, for example, men and women had more or less a similar society because they were a militarized state. Ancient Sparta, women would wear shorter clothes than other women in Greece. They would learn to fight, they would learn to hunt, they would learn to gather. They weren't necessarily conscribed to the army, okay, but they still had a higher standing in terms of being women in the case of other women across Greece. In Athens, women couldn't vote, for example. And throughout history, there have been different levels of what a woman can and can't do among society. So it's always been a case of society deciding what a woman's role is. I don't think that there's much point in sticking to bygone ideas of what a woman should or shouldn't be doing, because the times have changed, the times have evolved, and I just don't think that it's necessary for you to stick to bygone ideals of women should stay at home. Especially, look, I live in London, for example. It seems incredulous to me to prevent a woman from working, which many different Muslim families will do within the UK. It seems incredulous to me that you would prevent a woman from working when the expenses are so high. It doesn't make any sense to me. So I just, it doesn't matter what you think that society's roles for women should be, because women's roles are always changing, always churning, always, reforming and remaking themselves. The fact that you're against equal opportunity and you think that equal opportunity would create an imbalance in society, which it hasn't. The Western societies run much more fluidly and much more freely than other societies. Because of, while not perfect, but because of equal opportunity and things like equal opportunity. It seems ridiculous to me that you would say that. I'm not entirely sure what you mean injustice, imbalance in society in terms of gender roles and responsibilities, like how that creates injustice. I'm not entirely sure what your definition of justice is, but I think that having a fairer world where people can, grow to achieve whatever they want and choose to do whatever they want is a more just society, especially if the things that they're choosing is productive and, would make them happier. We're not living to 30, 40 years anymore. We're living to 80 years. That's a long time to live in grief. And, to simply adhere by a responsibility laid down in the 700s, it just seems bizarre to me that you would want that. So the next thing she says is that feminism is laden with contradictions from one movement to another. If feminists can't agree on the basics among themselves, how can critics? The basis of feminism, the single thing about feminism, is equality between men and women. Like, there have been many different interpretations since, and there have been many waves since, but the crux of feminism is equality between men and women. Now, every single social movement, every single religion, every single anything socially, politically, even historically formed will have contradictions and disagreements within themselves. If we changed this sentence, right? Islam is laden with contradictions from one movement to another. If Muslims can't agree on basics among themselves, how can critics? What kind of argument is that? Okay, there's a majority share. There's clearly more prominent movements that you can argue against. It just isn't an argument. The amount of things that we have found, for example, within Islam, you could argue that there's no point in even arguing about it, because it's such an antiquated way of living. It's such an antiquated belief. Some people may even argue that it's a barbaric way of life and it doesn't belong in the 21st century. In my opinion, that's not an argument, because you still have millions of people following it. So it's just stupid that you would even make that argument, right? Like, I've prefaced at the beginning of this that I don't necessarily identify myself as a feminist, but I do agree that men and women should have equal rights, and that is the crux of feminism. And, you know, there's a discussion to be had there. And when we come across different waves of feminism, there are discussions to be had. And yes, different people will have different opinions. Different movements will have different opinions. But for you to dismiss the entire thing, it's like me saying, well, Shia Islam doesn't make any sense, so I'm going to throw Islam in the garbage. It doesn't make any sense. There's a discussion to be had, and the simple fact that you are not willing to have it says a lot. The next thing that you say is that feminism relies on identity politics and victimhood, thereby never truly aiming for resolution. I disagree, and I understand where this is coming from, but you also have to admit that politics in terms of free speech and religion is also highly driven by identity politics and victimhood. It's you're shooting yourself in the foot. Feminism, yes, it is highly ingrained in identity politics because it's about women and men, and being female or male is an identity, believe it or not. I don't necessarily think that the initial feminists, like the suffragette movement, for example, it was all based on victimhood. It was fighting for the equal right to vote. That's why they were called the suffragettes. And there's a difference between playing the victim card when you are not a victim and playing the victim card when you are a victim. And in many instances, when we're talking about feminism, especially historically, women were the victims of things, you know, be that the fact that they couldn't own property, or be that they didn't have equal divorce rights, or, you know, being able to keep their children following a divorce, or not being able to vote, or not having equal pay, or anything like that. The fact that you would call that based on victimhood is just silly and kind of insensitive. For the longest time, women and men have been unequal, and I don't necessarily think that they're unequal now, but they have been unequal for a very, very long time, and they have been a victim of being unequal. So I just don't understand why you would dismiss feminism because in the past, women have been victims. It doesn't make any sense. So the next thing she says, it's just completely irrelevant to me, but we're going to go over it. She says that feminism in practice it actually strips women of their God-given rights, hereby leading to injustice against women. What God-given rights did Allah give to women? To be slaves to men? Because that's you know, you have to obey your father, and then you have to obey your husband. What God-given rights? The right to be a broodmare, to be sold off to a man and then give birth to his children as long as he wants, to have no right to, you know, say that she doesn't want to sleep with him one night in case, you know, and if she does deny him that, she'll be cursed by the angels. What God-given rights was she given? The right to be respected only in the case if she's a mother by her children? Is that the only... I'm confused as to what God-given rights. God-given rights that she's deficient in intelligence, you know, said by Muhammad, that her periods and the fact that she can't fast or pray during her period means that she's less in religion to a man. Is that her God-given right? I'm confused as to what you think Islam's God-given rights are for women. Women in Islam have fewer things to gain than men do. In terms of inheritance, in terms of standing, a woman's word is half that of a man's. In terms of, you know, her place in her own home, you know, she's treated like a child by her husband. What are her God-given rights? You know, in her standing in society, she has to be covered up. Her voice has to be silenced. You know, she can't walk loudly. Like, what are her God-given rights? I'm confused. it's really, I'm like angry. It's really shocking to me that women will say these things. Like, it's really, really shocking to me. And then this woman is also a convert into Islam. So she had the privilege of not being born into a Muslim family, not growing up Muslim, and then claiming that our, a Muslim way of life is better than a free way of life where you can literally do whatever the hell you want. It's embarrassing. It's really embarrassing, and I'm genuinely angry at it. The last thing she says before she goes off topic is that feminism renders all men inherently evil and forces them into silence about any grievance they may have. I don't know about that because feminism has had many waves. I will admit that there are feminists out there that want to hold women to a standard that is higher than men. I don't agree with that. I think that women and men are equal and should remain equal, and that no gender is higher than the other. But if we want to talk about painting men as inherently evil, let's talk about the hijab. The fact that you and other Muslims and Islam itself considers men to be so emotionally, deficient, so intellectually deficient, that if a woman does not cover, that means that any man is capable of raping her, and a woman has to take responsibility for that. Who's painting who evil? Who's painting who evil? Okay? All men are not inherently evil. As someone who, I guess I'll call myself an egalitarian, I don't like labels, but I believe in equality between men and women. As someone who believes that, and as someone who, by definition, is a feminist, I don't render all men inherently evil. And if any ideology did, in the sense that women had to cover because of them, it's Islam. Islam, like, one of the first things that I thought after leaving Islam, and the first thing that I thought after taking my hijab off, even though I was no longer a Muslim, is, am I going to get attacked by a man because I took my hijab off? And how toxic a mentality is that? Men are human beings, and when you talk about kafirs, when you talk about disbelievers who will look at women because they're not wearing the hijab, I'm sorry, you don't have a horse in this race. You don't get to say that. When you constantly claim that if a woman does not wear a hijab, it's her responsibility to cover herself for her protection against men. As if men don't have the, the cognition or the responsibility to care for their own actions. You don't have a horse in this race. And then she refutes her arguments by saying that she's not in disagreement with feminism to gain male approval. Yes, you are. You absolutely are. And I'll tell you exactly how. You are hard on feminism, or you disagree with feminism because you follow Islam. And Islam is an inherently misogynistic religion that was set up by a misogynist, a man who married 11 women or more at the same time. He kept a menagerie of women. He would conquer societies and capture their women, sometimes not even marry them, just keep them as concubines. Okay? That is the man that you admire, and the man who set up the religion that you follow and you defend, and you trophy over equal rights for both genders. That is what you follow. So to completely dispute your refutation of everyone's arguments, you do it for male approval. You do it for a specific kind of man, but it is essentially for male approval, because you are looking for the approval of a misogynist who set up this inherently misogynistic religion. And it's just, honestly, it's disgusting. It's disgusting having to read this from a woman who did not grow up in our societies, did not grow up in our communities, and converted in and is trading in her freedom for what is complete slavery. And instead of just, if that is your choice, that is your choice. I'm not saying you can't make it. Everyone, if you want to be a slave to a delusion, that is your choice. I am standing for your right to do that. But to claim that your delusion is somehow triumphant over freedom for everyone, and that this should be the standard for which society operates is absolutely fucking ridiculous. That must have been the first swear I dropped in this live stream. I'm officially angry. It's ridiculous, and I can't believe that you would assert that in an Islamic society, for example, under a caliphate, that women would have a better position or be in any way happier than in a free society where they can literally do whatever they want. We've gone through the thread. For those of you who didn't check it out, I posted it earlier in the chat, and I'm going to repost it there. I will answer some of your queries. I'm just going to go through the chat, and I'm, going to say my highs, and, we'll get through some other questions that I have from Twitter and then from the chat itself. So welcome, everyone. Welcome, Sarfaraz Ansari, Rory the Swagger Husky 1988, Ahmed 09, Laura Joseph, Susu Benna, Tony Designs, Nerdy Rodent, Thomas, Wahid Nadafi, Practice Your English, it's not my words, it's just his name, Santosh Krishnan, and British Pakistani Atheist, Phil Susam, and yeah, I think that's everyone. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining me. For those of you who joined me midway, I hope that was not too difficult to watch, because I was getting heated up towards the end there. I mean, obviously for good reason. But how is everyone today? I hope the mic is working, because that would be embarrassing if it wasn't. And I have some questions from Twitter that I'm going to answer. I don't know if you want me to go through those first or to go through the chat first. I'll leave it up to you guys. But yeah, Nour, when I saw this yesterday, I didn't know how else to react by just saying that it was a waste of brain cells. And then she completely blocked me because there's not much of an argument to be had there. But yeah, it was just disappointing to see, and I guess I wanted to address it today because I put up a vote of what kind of live stream you guys wanted today, and you guys wanted one around Islam, so that's what we're doing. But because people have requested me to have a look at the chat, that's what I'm going to do. For those of you who have just joined us, please ensure to like, subscribe if you enjoyed my content. You can also give us super chats through the chat box. I guess that's what we're calling it. All of the links are in the description below. I also have a Patreon. I have a PayPal if you want to support me in a more monetary way. And if you don't like the video so far, please let me know why. The chat is open and we welcome everybody here. This is, as far as I'm concerned, a free speech platform. So the first question is from Sarfaraz Ansari. He says, what's your take on deism? I've answered this before a few times. It's the same take I have with agnosticism. I don't think that there's a real way to know whether or not there is a God, but my way of thinking is that even if there is a God, you still have to give me a reason for worshipping him. So I don't adhere to agnosticism or deism. In my opinion, it's the equivalent of sitting on the fence. As far as I'm concerned, until there is proof of a God, and then also the proof that I have to worship him for some reason, and it has to be a good one, I don't believe in a God. That's what I think about it. Ahmed09 says, are you born in the UK? Yes, I am. No, I wasn't born in the UK. I grew up in the UK. I was born in Bangladesh. But I grew up here in London. I've always been a London girl. We have some comments. Susu Benna says, what do you think of the hashtag #MeToo movement? I don't know. I haven't really paid a lot of attention to it. If I'm completely honest, I don't think that there's a lot of harm in it. I think it's really important for people to come out about their experiences. That's what my whole channel is about. I do think that there carries a risk of people doing it for attention, but I don't think that that's the majority. I think the majority is coming out to share their stories about serious issues and what's been going on within specific industries. So that's my take on the Me Too movement. If I'm completely honest, I haven't looked into it too much. I haven't had to contribute it. I'm not part of the movement myself, so I don't know too much about it. Wahid Nadafi says, what is your opinion on Surah 929? I don't know what Surah 929 is, so let me just look that up. It looks like Surah Tawbah. Yeah. Fight those who do not believe in Allah or in the last day, and who do not consider unlawful what Allah and His Messenger have made unlawful, and who do not adopt the religion of truth from those who were given the scripture. Fight until they give the jizya willingly while they are humbled. I mean, there's not much of an opinion to have on there. We've already established that Islam was a colonial religion, and the jizya was a payment that needed to be made specifically by the people of the book, but I think it was extended to others as well later on, as Islam kind of watered down over the years. It was a tax that disbelievers had to pay to the Islamic State. So yeah, I mean, there's not much of an opinion. What opinion would you like me to share on that verse exactly? Any other questions? Just having a look. Santosh Krishnan, your opinion on recent CAA law passed by India, which gives citizenship to non-Muslims persecuted in Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Bangladesh. I don't know much about that. I don't know too much about the politics in the Indian subcontinent. It's not something that I pay attention to. I barely pay attention to politics in my own country because I just find it overwhelming sometimes. I just need to shut my brain off to it. The only true time that I'm paying attention to politics is when there's an election concerned and where everybody stands. But even then, I typically keep politics quite close to my chest. But in terms of politics in the Indian subcontinent, I typically stay away from them. I think British Pakistani atheist says, I think some women inherently enjoy being dominated by men. Varies from women to women. I think that's up to them to decide, in the same way that it's up to men to decide who they want to be dominated by, or if they want to be dominated at all. But the basis of everything should be freedom to choose, right? I don't see anything wrong with that. Laura Joseph says, how did only the monkeys stand up and become humans and not the giraffe? Okay, they're talking about evolution. We're not going to get into that today. Laura Joseph, do women get 72 virgins as well? Or just Muslim men who also get 4 wives? Muslim women in paradise do not get 72 virgins. They get a never-bending penis, from what I've heard. Rory, the Swagger Husky 1988 says, hi Faye, how are you? I'm great. Angry, but great. Saying Islam is a feminist religion is an insult to feminism. Yeah. British Pakistani atheist says, if you go on Islamic marriage websites, you will see many women looking to convert to Islam and stating in their profile that they are looking for a man to take control. Well, that's gross. That's gross. So Faraz Ansari says, what's your thought on 72 virgins in heaven? Will any women feel comfortable? I don't know. I haven't been to heaven. You know, it just gives away the fact that this religion was made by a man, because what kind of God would what kind of God would offer men 72 virgins? Like, it seems a little. And then this religion that's so focused on like keeping yourself pure and being married to, you know, to be able to have sex and things like that, and with all these honor things, it's stupid and ridiculous. And And the narrative is that I've heard a lot of people say, like, how are 72 virgins going to stay virgins? Because clearly, after you have sex with them once, they're going to stop being virgins. The narration that I've read, I mean, I haven't gone back to them in a hot minute, but from what I've read, is that they never cease being virgins. They will always be virgins in paradise, and women only get one penis that never deflates, essentially. It's just always erect. And that's her sexual reward, I guess. I don't know. Also, like, Islam strips the idea of women enjoying sex. Like, it's considered to be not a thing, which is why they're not offered anything more than an unbending penis. What do I think of Jordan Peterson? I have never been able to watch him for a long period of time because I feel like he minces words. I feel like he minces words, and I don't know, it's just a waste of time. I like people who are straight talking and get to the point, and that's kind of why I keep everything quite loose on this channel. I don't mind too much with the swearing or the ums or the ahs, because to me that speaks to authenticity. But when things are over polished, and you have Jordan Peterson, I think he's a very good speaker. I don't agree with him on a lot of things, but I think he's a very good speaker. And I don't know, I just haven't been able to listen to him for an extended amount of time without needing to change to something else. So yeah. Phil Susam, wasn't Khadija Stater better pre-Islamic than post-Islamic? Well, the thing with Khadija was Muhammad's first wife, and she died soon after Islam was first revealed to Muhammad. So she didn't really have a status after Islam because she was dead. But pre-Islam, she was a businesswoman. She, was Muhammad's employee. Yes, she definitely, the pre-Islamic status of women seems to have been much better than the post-Islamic status of women. So yeah, and a lot of, I've heard the argument many times that, oh, daughters used to be buried. People would bury their daughters in pre-Islamic societies. And I don't know if that's true because only Islamic sources state that. But from the attributes of Khadija, we can probably defer that the status of women was much better. But now that we're more or less through the chat, I do want to get into some of the Twitter questions that we have. So the first one was from Tyler Preston. He said that I should do a live stream about The Witcher, and I did end up doing that with him. I mean, that's completely irrelevant to what we're talking about here. But he had said that I should do a review of The Witcher, and I did that with him. I think that the last post I made on this channel, so through my YouTube channel, was about that. So if you haven't seen that and you're interested in that, please go and see it. Like I said, I do want to broaden my content a little bit, and I do want to do reviews. I think I'll probably do a review on Messiah, because I'm just laboriously getting through it at the moment. But if you're interested in that, please go and check it out. It's on his channel, Tyler Preston 20. Social Climb, or at y_m_c_a__, says, I've left Islam 3 years ago. I only just started speaking up about it online. How long ago did you leave, and what came after the initial realization? I've spoken about this quite a few times. So I left Islam in 2017, and I started speaking about Islam in 2018. So the October of 2018 is when I started speaking about it. And when I first left Islam, I was in an existential crisis for about a year. I didn't know what to do with my life. My life had no direction. and I wanted to die because my whole life felt like it was a lie. And the way that I describe it to most people who ask me in person is that it felt like that scene in The Matrix where Neo wakes up in the water pod and he pulls that thing out of his throat, that tube out of his throat. That's what it felt like. And that's what it felt like for a whole year. I didn't know what to do with my life, but I think that good times and good friends and a few different things. I think just being able to decompress and staying away from religious content in general, be that about atheism, be that about actual religion, just staying away from that gave me a sense, just a sense and a calm. But talking about religion also calmed me down and made it feel less important to invest in. So that was a big thing. But yeah, I mean, the initial realization was just utter heartbreak. Rachel says, I'm interested to see what kind of art you do, if any, so maybe you could create something live. I do want to do different kinds of live streams, so if you have any suggestions, please let me know. I'm still sorting out technical things, so like getting a computer that actually can... I mean, I have a laptop, this is my laptop, but she's huge and she's old, she's an old sea cow. And I don't want to stress her out. As we saw last week, she had the blue screen of death, and thankfully that hasn't come back. But I really don't want to put any strain on her, so I'm saving up for a new laptop. If you would like to expedite the process, I would really appreciate that. You know, through my Patreon or through my PayPal or through Super Chats or whatever you want. Like, honestly, you don't have to. It's just something... it's just something that if you want to do, you can. So yeah, I would love to do some live art, create some live art, just talk and have a good time. That seems like something that would be fun. Robert asks, future plans and aspirations, what does 2020 hold for you? I've done a New Year's resolution video, you can check it out. I think it's the last video that I posted here. I think I posted it this week. I think it's the last video I posted. So yeah, he says, have you thought of writing a book about your life? I don't know, because I'm 24 and I don't think that I have that much to write about. I have been thinking about writing a book. I've been staring at my screen constantly with these ideas, but not knowing necessarily how to start writing a book. I have made it a personal target of mine to write something weekly or bi-weekly. So that's something that I'm going to start. But whether or not I would write a book about my life, I don't know. Simply because I feel like that's something you do when you're old. And also because I don't know if I would be able to take myself that seriously. I don't take myself that seriously on a daily basis, let alone on an extended project like a book. What collaborations would you like to do in future with other ex-Muslims or others in general? I would like to collab with anyone. Literally anyone and everyone, as long as you're willing to put me on your channel and I don't have to do any of the technical stuff because I'm terrible at it. I'm willing to collab with anyone. It doesn't matter from what sphere of life, from where they come from, what they believe, what their opinions are. Like, even if Ali Dawah reached out to me and was like, hey, you want to collab? And technically we have collab. There's a video of me on his channel, which, where's my AdSense? Yeah, I don't mind. So anyone who wants to collaborate, and I don't care about followers or anything like that. You can have 5 followers. It doesn't matter to me. I'm willing to collaborate with anyone. Just choose the topic, the time, and the date. DM me on Twitter or get me through YouTube or email me. My email is in the About section of this channel. So yeah. Nervadia, who is someone I need to collaborate with, but I've yet to receive my email. She says, what do you think Elder Scrolls 6 will be like? The only Elder Scrolls game that I've played is Skyrim, and I really enjoyed Skyrim, and Bethesda seems to constantly reboot that in different forms and in, you know, different remasters. So I don't know. It doesn't feel like they've prioritized in making new games, only enhancing old games. I love, you know, open world games. I haven't played one in so long, But I love open world games, so I'm hoping that it will be good, and I'm hoping that I can actually play it instead of just watching YouTube playthroughs longingly, because I want to play these games. I've been going through the Witcher series because that's my new obsession. Well, it's not a new obsession, it's an old obsession that's been rekindled because of the Netflix series. So I've been going back through like the Witcher gameplay, and I'm just constantly, every second of watching it is just like punishment because I know I can't play it right now. And I don't even know if I want to play it because I know the whole story. But no, I do want to play it. I want to make all the choices. I want to play the best version of the game. So I'm hoping that it will be good. I'm hoping. But Bad Tempered Badger commented underneath saying that if recent Bethesda games are anything to go by, shit. Which, I mean, he's not wrong. The reviews for the new Fallout game were just awful. So the last and final question is from Cardiff Atheist, or at Secular Hitchens, who is a patron of mine. Thank you so much for being my first patron, first of all, and also being my longest standing patron, and, you know, always supporting me and encouraging me to keep doing what I'm doing. I really appreciate it. But he says, do you think younger Muslims will eventually give up the religion or become more religious? Even with access to information about its nonsense in the Quran. I think that a lot of younger Muslims are moving away, and some are becoming more radicalized. I think that Islam, especially in the West, has become more of an identity issue than it has a spiritual issue, which is a little difficult to explain, but that's what I think is happening. So I think that Muslims who are looking at it purely from a religious standpoint and not a social political one are moving away from it because it doesn't make much sense. It doesn't fit with the 21st century lifestyle. It's outdated. It's a 7th century way of living. Like, no one wants that. But people who look at Islam as a political or social banner are becoming more radicalized, and it's a worry. And that's why I think that we need to focus our efforts more on combating radical Islam than just like the fluff Islam, like the fluffy, like not that important Islam. And that's what, I mean, in part I'm trying to do. I'm not necessarily trying to dismantle the whole religion because I don't think I can. But I do, you know, the place that I speak from as someone who was radicalized at a really young age, who went to an Islamic school, who, you know, listened to a lot of things that came out of Saudi, read a lot of things that came out of Saudi. That's what I'm trying to do by just sharing my experience and just letting people know that there is a way out, and this isn't just because you've invested so much into it doesn't mean that you can't, you know, throw it away and start again. So that's my aim with this, you know, with what I do on Twitter and on YouTube, and what I feel like I'll continue to do for quite a while. So I hope that answers your question. We're going to dive back into the chat and then maybe close off unless you guys have other questions for me. Where did my chat go? Fuck. But we're going to have a look at some other questions. And if you guys have questions, please leave them in the chat. Again, for those of you who just joined us or joined recently, if you like the content, please like and subscribe. If you don't like the content, please tell me why. The chat is open. And remember to smash that dislike button on your way out if you don't feel like sticking around. This is a free speech platform as far as I'm concerned, so you can say whatever you want, whether you disagree or agree. And yeah, if you would like to support me in a more monetary way, super chats are open, and there are also links in the description to my PayPal, my Patreon, and we have some merch, so feel free to check that out if you so wish. But I'm going to go ahead, and I'm just looking at the chat. It's really difficult for me to read things and also speak. So I'm just looking through and seeing what I can find. So the last question I answered was about Khadija's status, which we went over. And then Nigel Sukram says, would love some eating spot reviews in London. Ooh, I could definitely do that. the problem with that is that a lot of my favorite eating spots are spots that I used to go to with my ex, so I don't go to them anymore. But they are brilliant eating spots. They are amazing eating spots. I could make a Twitter list or something. I miss those places so much. I haven't been to them in a while. So yeah. British Pakistani atheist says, have you seen the film House of Sand and Fog starring Ben Kingsley? One of my all-time favorites. No, I haven't. I haven't seen a lot of films. I typically just see new ones now, unless people are absolutely adamant that I see a film. Usually, if I do see a film, it will be with one of my friends. I rarely sit at home and watch films. I consume a lot of YouTube. I consume a lot of... It's not even worth talking about. I consume so much YouTube, and usually I'll come across series and I'll binge watch the whole series. They're just easier for me to consume than a film, especially if I don't like it. But there's quite a few like really old films that my friends have told me that I need to watch, and I'll watch it with them. I find that easier because then I have ideas to bounce off people, and I'm not entirely bored. So, Rory the Swagger Husky 1998 says, why don't you show off your arts in a live stream? Because I'm not good at showing off my things. So, yeah, I'm just... I mean, I would love to. I took down quite a bit of my art. Like, if I turn my camera, I'll show you. I've replaced... so, usually this is my background for where I do videos. I've replaced a lot of it with just memorabilia from last year. So yeah, maybe when I have like a full sketchbook to show off. I have a little sketchbook on my phone that I could definitely show you. So it's like a digital sketchbook, but I still have to figure out, because I wouldn't know if you just wanted like just the tour of just like the screen, so it would just be like this frame with all the drawings in it, or if you would want to have like a little reaction thing in the corner. If you want a little reaction thing, I need to get another camera because I use my phone for everything. But yeah, I don't know. I'll figure out something. We'll figure out it's future phase problem. But yeah, I do eventually want to get to do different kinds of live streams. Want to mix up the content just a little bit. I used to do quite a bit of drawing on this channel. It's not been frequent recently because the muses just haven't visited me. They've just been taking a holiday throughout Christmas. But hopefully 2020, we'll see. The next question is Phil Susan. How is your present relationship with your female relatives and female friends? Are they still hostile? Well, my female friends, I don't have any hostility towards them, but my female relatives, I want to say like 90% of them are still pretty hostile. I've said this in a video before. My need for family is driven more by the fact that I miss the concept of having a family over my actual family members. My actual family members have always been horrible in one way or another. So most of the relations that I have with female relatives at the moment are quite hostile. There are people in my family who I have better relationships with. I'm not going to say who, don't want to get them in trouble. But yeah, it's just the never-ending cycle. I really think that it's never going to be solved, just because these ideals are just trapped inside them. But you know, it's whatever. I'm more or less I've made my peace with it. Thomas says, have you managed to find a job yet? Yes, I have. I've work lined up throughout all of January, thankfully. So that's, you know, it's all good. Rory the Swagger Husky in 1988 says, Faye, did Muhammad allow prostitution for one time like mut'a marriage? Well, I think mut'a marriage now is used as a method of prostitution within Shia Islam, but the reason that mut'a marriage was allowed during the Prophet's time was because men would leave for their battles. Men would leave for their battles and they would take women with them, and those would be the women that they would have a temporary marriage with while they were on an expedition or a campaign. And it was eventually outlawed alongside eating the meat of donkeys by Muhammad because he was seeing it used in a prostitution way. Muhammad had this weird thing against prostitution, so that was why he outlawed it eventually. But yeah, I mean, in a lot of Shia countries, so like in Iran, muta marriage is used as a form of prostitution. British Pakistani atheist says there is a channel I follow called the Sir Faiz channel, which is a mostly Salafi live stream panel, but they allow non-Muslims to come on and debate with them. You should go on sometime. I'm not the biggest fan of debate panels, especially if they're not on my turf, because I don't like just the screaming match. As you've probably seen, I'm pretty quick to anger. It's one of my favorite characteristics, while also subsequently being my least favorite characteristics. I like that I'm passionate about a lot of things, but also that I'm very, very quick to anger, especially if someone says something absolutely fucking disgusting. So I don't think that a debate panel is for me necessarily. I've had many conversations with Salafi Muslims, especially around Speaker's Corner, and I have gotten to, admittedly, every time I'm there, I'm drunk, but I mean, and that calms me down a fair bit. But it's just I don't like the frame of the conversation being a debate. Like, I don't want it to go anywhere. I don't want there to be stakes. I don't want people to win. Like, I'm, as someone who has recently discovered is very, very competitive, I don't need that language to be used when talking to someone. I don't like going into a conversation thinking that I need to win this in order for something to prevail from it. So I would rather just, a conversation, a cup of coffee, a drink, anything. But debates, typically I don't like going in for them. So yeah. And Stop Serving and Rob from Gin and Talk Show go on there regularly. Yeah, they'd be good on it because they're more level-headed than I am. I'm not level-headed at all. My personality does not fit a debate scene. Ahmed09 says, are you from Sylhet? Yes, I'm from Molvi Bazar. Uttar Molaim is my buffer buddy, or my dad's hometown, and Borat is my mother's hometown. Dingo Jitsu says, lips are banging. Thank you. Didn't have to work hard on them at all. I have all these lip glosses to choose from the Christmas sales, so world's my oyster. Nigel Sukram says, I'd be down for eating Bangladeshi recipes keto style. I really need to find some keto Bangladeshi recipes because I'm going to start, I'm not going to go full keto right now, but maybe in a few months I want to start keto again. Tony Design says, lol, did you tell a mod to stop spamming? No, it Stop Spamming is a user. He's on the Gin and Tonic show. His name is Stop Spamming. I don't know why. Mr. Political 101 says, did you ever think they'll come around, in terms of my family, do you ever think they'll come around and finally make peace with you, your relatives, I mean? I think there are members of my family who will come around eventually. I don't know if I necessarily want a relationship with them. I'm not a person who has, like, I'm a forgiving spirit, but there are just some things that are just too much for me to forgive sometimes. Like, I don't, even if my father, for example, came around, I don't think that I'd be able to forgive him for what he did, not just to me, but to loads of people. And I don't know. I think if I really wanted to make peace with them, I could potentially do it through some struggle even right now. But the thing is that it would be, first of all, it would be really difficult and it could be potentially dangerous. And the second thing would be, I don't know if I want those people in my life, because genuinely most of them are extremely toxic people who will, for me, guilt is a huge trigger in terms of my mental health. So there are people who will utilize that. Like, they'll find all your weaknesses and then utilize that for their gain. And I've dealt with them for 20 years of my life, and I really don't think I owe them more than that. There are relatives that I have made peace with, or like get along with, and have met up with, and it's been beautiful. It works perfectly. But for the most part, I don't know. I don't see it happening anytime soon. And to be honest, I don't even know if I want that, So, Rory the Swagger Husky says, Faye, when will our people, the Bengalis, leave Islam? I don't know. I know that there is something of a secular movement going on in Dhaka right now. It's not as big as the Islamist movement, but there is a secular movement going on. I think for the most part, back home, there are more Bengalis that are slightly more secular or moderate or whatever you want to call it than Bengalis here in the UK. I have relatives in the US who are much more moderate than our friends and family who are Bengalis here in the UK. And I think part of it is, like I said, it's a social political issue. But I don't know. To be honest, it's not my prerogative to make everyone leave Islam. That's not why I'm here. The reason I'm here, the reason I'm speaking, is that I want Islam to leave politics. And that's what I want to see in the future. And I just want to raise awareness for people who do leave Islam and to normalize that. So I don't know. British Pakistani atheist says, why do people from Dhaka not get on with people from Sylhet? I don't know. Bengalis don't get along with Bengalis in general. I mean, I personally do. I have Dhakai friends. If Riz is in the chat, I get along with him, and I actually need to grab a coffee with him at some point because he recently went to Bangladesh, and since I'm not allowed to go back because I will be burned alive, I don't know. I want to hear as much as I can about it. So yeah, I think it's been an hour, so I think I'm gonna close out the live stream very soon. But if anybody has any final questions, comments, concerns, abuse to her, let me know. The chat is open. If you liked this live stream, please leave a like. Please remember to subscribe. If you didn't like it, smash that dislike button and tell me why you disliked it. If you would like to support me in a more monetary way, there are links in the description to my Patreon, my PayPal, and some merchandise that I've made, as well as the super chats. Please utilize the super chats if you would like to support me in that way. But we will be closing out soon, so any final comments, concerns, complaints, let me know. Nigel Sukram says, I know you don't pay attention to American politics, but if the current president gets re-elected, is it a win for anti-Islam activists? What's the current president? What, Trump? I haven't been paying attention. I don't know. I don't know is the answer. And also, I don't really understand what an anti-Islam activist is. I didn't know that was a thing. I don't know the answer to that live stream, like that question. Sorry, I was reading and talking at the same time again. I don't know the answer to that question because I have too many questions for that question. But thank you guys for joining me today. I don't know much about the CAA law passed in India. Sorry, I can't answer the question because I don't know enough about it. But thank you guys for joining me. Thank you for listening to me rant in the first 30 minutes, and then thank you for joining me for the Q&A. I hope you gained something from it. And you'll probably see me on Wednesday. It's going to be a busy week next week because it's back to work. And then I have a meeting with CMB, or the Council of Ex-Muslims of Britain. We're going to strategize about activism for the year. And yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. Happy New Year's for those of you who missed my last video. Happy 2020. Many good lucks for you. And yeah, I will see you in the next video, possibly on Wednesday. Don't know what it's going to be about yet, but I'm sure I'll figure it out soon. So yeah, see you later.